So I just took a little bit of time to remove myself from the situation before I made this video because I didn't want. I'll be honest, I was quite angry, and I didn't want that to come across in the video. So I've calmed down, and now I think I can give a little bit of a portrayal of what I think's happened. Um, First of all, I want to start by saying Tottenham were on their game today. In an attacking sense. I don't think defensively they were all up there, but in an attacking sense, every single time their front four-ish, I'd probably say their front four, touched the ball, they looked confident. They looked like scoring, even in situations where you wouldn't think a team would look like scoring. So, first of all, massive props to Tottenham for outplaying us and just being the better team by far. Do I think it was made a lot easier for them? Yes, I do. I think the Burnley team from a few matches ago, I'd say 2-3 weeks ago, that team gives Tottenham big problems and makes it a lot more difficult for them to score. I think after that first goal went in, after the match against West Brom, after such a demoralising game, after that first goal went in against Tottenham, confidence must have been shot big time, and I think that showed throughout the game. We didn't really ever look like really worrying Tottenham's defence at all. I think more than anything, Tottenham's defence was the thing that worried Tottenham's defence. We had a few chances where we got through somehow. That you'd expect a club pushing for top four. Well, they're not pushing for top four, but they should be pushing for top four considering their team. You'd expect a defence of a top four aiming team to be able to deal with it very easily. They just didn't. And that's not testament to us playing well. I do think that's just testament, or rather lack thereof, of just a poor Tottenham defence. Anyway, I'm a Burnley fan, so I'm gonna have to talk about Burnley's performance instead. I'm not changing allegiances. Do not worry. I still love Burnley. I'm a firm believer in that if you can't stick with your team through the most difficult of times, you don't deserve to stick with your team in the easiest of times. But yeah, as a team, I think similarly to the West Brom game, I think we're very disorganised. There were a lot of times, perhaps to Tottenham's sort of well play, we were brought out of position far too easily. We lunged into things far too easily, and that's particularly attributable to their second goal. I think it was the second goal. A ball was coming over. I think it was from Gareth Bale. Harry Kane was going to get on top of it, and Josh Brownhill decided to stretch out and kick it, and he missed it. Even if he does get that ball, the likelihood of Harry Kane ending up with the ball anyway is still quite high. What Josh Brownhill had to do there was just stay on his feet and keep with Harry Kane, because he probably has the pace on him. I would have assumed, maybe not, but that's the gist I get. But I suppose everyone has their moments of madness, their moments of, that was the bad choice. But that game was just absolutely full of poor choices and just poor football. Honestly, poor football. I don't know what it is. When we went into that West Brom game, there was obviously a lot of talk about we've had 5 games or 5 or 6 games in a row now, over 2 or 3 weeks. Obviously, that's difficult. I understand that, but that was the excuse for the West Brom game. We drew 0-0. We actually had an all right result. Okay, we got a point. We've now had a week off. Our players are getting back to full fitness. We've had the time off to sort of recuperate. What's the excuse now? Not that obviously we want excuses. We want a change. Excuses don't do anything. The thing that does do something is knowing exactly what's wrong and changing that and sorting it out. So what is the problem? That's something I don't know the answer to, personally. You can speculate, but I can't currently pinpoint the reason as to why we've fallen off so much these last couple of games. Yeah, it's a tough one to take, especially considering Tottenham's form recently hasn't been excellent. Like, obviously, they've won the odd game, but it hasn't been excellent compared to us, who what were we on a three or four game unbeaten streak. That's pretty good. But Arsenal went invincible, and a lot of their games were draws. It's not good enough getting draws when what you need is wins, especially with teams like Fulham and West Brom and even Sheffield really picking it up now. We're the ones who are now in the worry. Same with Newcastle. Us, Newcastle, and perhaps Brighton, but I think Brighton have shown too much to prove that perhaps they will get relegated. I don't know. But you talk about the current bottom three that are at the bottom right now. They are performing. Big time they are performing. They want to stay up. They are showing that fight and fire. Whereas we aren't. We seem to have dropped off, and we seem to have thought, you know what, we're fine. And that it's just going to naturally come to you. Obviously, that's a long stretch, and I know that footballers in general are very competitive people. I'm obviously most people on earth are quite competitive. So that might be a frivolous thing to say, but I don't know. That's just my general idea. So I do hope we can pick it up big time soon. Otherwise, we are now in it. Well, I'd say we are currently in a relegation battle. Yeah, I don't know. The Sheffield-Liverpool game's on later tonight. I don't think Sheffield will be too much of our current worry, but the more Sheffield win, the more chance they have of staying up. Is really quite as simple and direct and as given as that. So hopefully Liverpool win that game, or if not, draw. Knowing our luck, though, and knowing Liverpool's luck, they will get demolished. That wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, I've talked for 7.5 minutes now. Time to go on to the team. Individual performances, that is. Nick Pope in net. Honestly, this was probably Nick Pope's worst performance I've seen in a long time. Nick Pope has been the thing holding us together in recent games where we've been playing poor. But today he was just part of that. He was part of the poor play. Every single goal I think that went in today didn't even look like getting near it. First goal, I think he could have come out and at least challenged for it. I understand, we were a minute in. Oh, that's sad. I understand we were a minute in, and sometimes you might not be quite on top of your game, but that's your job. Your job is to be on top of your game for the full 90. The second the whistle blows first, and the last whistle, you're supposed to be on top of your game. So I don't know. It's difficult to say anything too bad about Nick Pope because he has been one of our best performers across the season. When the rest of our team hasn't been performing the same. But today, I think he was off it. I think he was off it big time. Hopefully that's just a down day, though. Hopefully he's not, losing confidence or anything. I don't know, though. We'll see. Matt Lowton. Tell you what, I'll talk about the fullbacks. No, do you know what? I'll talk about the full defence. Quite a forgettable performance, really. Not even in terms of the fact that we conceded 4 goals. Just in the fact that... Actually, no, let's look at the fullbacks. Because they have a little bit more to their game. Pushing up, Matt Lowton and Charlie Taylor they weren't it. They just didn't look good. I know Charlie Taylor's obviously coming back from a couple annoying, niggly injuries. And I'd assume, considering Charlie Taylor's class that we know he has, he will come back to it soon. Matt Lowton, I don't know if that's quite the case. I've said it the last couple of times. To me, he is at his best with Goodmanson right in front of him on the wing. Josh Brownell just isn't the Goodmanson that Lowton needs. He needs that quick thinking, that creative flair. Because Matt Lowton has that creative flair. It's just he can't do it by himself. He's not a Messi. But with your Goodmansons around you, with your Ashley Westwoods, I'll get on to Ashley Westwood actually, around you, his job is a lot easier and he can do the things that he wants to do a lot better. So, yeah. Again, I don't want to put him down too much because every single team has their off days. You know, everyone loses. Everyone loses. Everyone has terrible games at, look at earlier in the season. Man United lost 6-1 against Tottenham. What are they now? I think the second or third in the league now. It is simple as that. Everyone has their off games. And today just happened to be a particularly off game where we conceded 4 goals, which, by the way, is not good for our goal difference. We are struggling for goals, and the only way that we can keep a good goal difference if we're struggling for goals is to not concede. Conceding 4 is the worst thing we could have done, if you forget about conceding 5 or 6 or more. Anyway, centre-backs, Burnley, James Tarkowski. I think that's the worst performance James Tarkowski's put in a very, very, very long time. Same with Nick Pope. He's usually the glue. He's usually one of our better performers. Today, I think he was one of our worst. Perhaps I've seen it in a pessimistic view. I don't know. You tell me what you think. But from my point of view today, I just think he was poor. I think he was very poor. He left too much space open for himself a lot of the time. Usually he's good at getting back and getting that last ditch tackle. He was just nowhere near it today. Ben Mee, I felt he was pretty invisible to the team. Some of his passing out was silly. Like one pass that comes to mind instantly. There were about 3 different passes he could have made, and he made one pass to Charlie Taylor, who was very nearly marked. He was marked by 1.5 men, coming on to 2 men. And it just confused me. But obviously, our players aren't known for their distribution from the back. So I can't slate him too much. So yeah, that's the defence. This is going to be a long video, actually. I've had a lot to say. I need to get it all off my chest. Dwight McNeil, first half, I don't even think he touched the ball first half, to be totally honest. I can't remember him touching the ball anyway. He probably did touch the ball. I just can't remember him doing that. Second half, he picked it up a little bit more. It's getting to the point in his career now. Yes, he's 20, 21. It's weird saying he's getting to the point in his career so early on. He's nearly on his century, and he's nearly on 100 games. But he's getting to the point of his career now where he needs to really start thinking about what's his plan B, because people have figured out Dwight McNeil now. People understand what he does, and usually a one-trick pony is so good at that one trick that even if people know what's going to happen, they can't do it. Adama Traore, perfect example of one of them. He's just extremely fast and can get past people instantly. Some people have figured out how to get past that. I think Charlie Taylor has him in his back pocket every game. But Dwight McNeil he needs to start building his game. I know he's 2021. I need to know our players' names. It's poor of me, really. He's a young fella, and he will learn. And the more managers he gets in his career, the more he'll develop as a winger, perhaps an attacking midfielder, depending on where he goes. But I do really, really want to see Dwight McNeil do well. It's the same with J-Rod. When J. Rodriguez left, I wanted him to do well. It was sad because, you want your homegrown talents to stay with you forever. But not everyone's Steven Gerrard, And Dwight McNeil, I think, does deserve to go onto bigger things and really develop his career. But he can't develop his career if he isn't willing to push his abilities, which I don't think he has done recently. Adding goals to his game, he scores goals, but as a winger, is that really his job? Or is his job to be more creative and find different ways of getting around players that players just can't foresee? I don't know. I might be talking a little bit sort of out of place there. I don't know, but I'm trying to speak as well as I can. I am struggling a little bit though, because I'm still a little bit frazzled by the game. Right midfield, Josh Brownell. 1 second, I'm going to have a bit of water. 1 moment. Josh Brownell. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it every single time he plays on that right-hand side. He just is not a right midfielder. Very slow, just... It was that sort of thing. It was like watching... I was going to say it's like watching James Tarkowski on the wing, but he'd probably do better. I love Josh Brownhill, and I think he's a vastly better player than Jack Cork, in terms of longevity and just in terms of general ability. But we can't play him on the right hand side. He's just he doesn't work there well, and as I've said, he and Loughton just don't work well together on the right hand side. So the sooner we can get Brownhill back into the centre, the better. But as I will go on to say, Jack Cork, I think, really stepped up today, and is my man of the match. You can't get a man of the match in a performance like that. But if you're talking about the best player, in my opinion, Jack Cork, miles above the rest, which is not testament to Jack Cork's ability, but more testament to his sort of mindset, compared to the rest of the team. And you could tell the experience from the not as experienced. You could tell Jack Cork is the most well-versed player in that team, just based on what he was doing today. Yeah, I think he was a lot better. Same happened last game, actually, in a team full of sort of weak, just uninspiring, unmotivated players. He seemed to stand up a little bit, and he got forward a little bit. The man's nearly in his mid-30s anyway. He's never going to be, quick-paced, quick-fiery stuff, but he had the idea. He had the oomph that we were missing big time for the entire game. But sadly, he as a physicality, as a person, as a being, was not the mind that we wanted to have in that body. If that makes sense. We wanted... Ideally, I'd like to share Jack Cork's mind with everybody. Not equally, like individually. And I think if that were the case, I think if we had a team full of Jack Corks, fully fit, prime at the moment Jack Corks, we might have won that one. Speaking of which, I want to see a Jack Cork goal soon, because I haven't celebrated one in a long time, and they're my favourite types of goals. Ashley Westwood, I said I'd talk about him. Inevitably, I was going to talk about him because that is my actual job. It's not my job. I don't get paid for this. I wish I got paid for it. It'd make things a lot easier. I'm sorry about that. Ashley Westwood. Again, last game. You know what? This game really... You could draw a lot of comparisons from last game to this game, from the West Brom game to today's game. Ashley Westwood was just off it. Again, some of his crossing into the box just was poor. There were a few good passes, a few incisive passes, but nothing that ever really came off. Good ideas, just not done well. There's not really much more I can say about him, to be perfectly honest. He was below average today, below his average. His average is pretty high considering the amount of good games he has. Up top, Matej Vidra. Again, pretty uninspiring. When he had chances on the edge of the box, he just moved over to the left or moved over to the right a little bit. Shot, blocked easily. And that was the story of our attack, I think, today. It was just... It was frustrating to watch, and I imagine as a player it must have been twice as frustrating, and I imagine for Deitch and his team, thrice as frustrating. Because we know that every single one of our attackers can score goals, because we've seen them all score goals. It's just the decision-making recently in terms of our attack just hasn't been there. And we just seem to be firing pot shots and hoping upon hoping that we'll get a goal that will push us forward, and it's just not happening. That's not how football works. the best players in the world take the shots from outside of the box because they see an opportunity. We don't see an opportunity. We're shooting and hoping it goes in the net. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. Because when your strikers are hitting and hoping and not using their skill to their advantage, you're not going to get the best out of your strikers. And the same goes for Gio Rodriguez. I think generally today he was very, very poor. Like worse than Matej Vidra, in my opinion. There were just a lot of very frustrating moments, and I could say this about every single player, but I think frustrating is the best word to use for the top two today. Yeah, there's not really much more I can say about the two, to be honest. I just think we just need to gather that little bit more composure. That in the what game was it? I think it was the Brighton game. We need that composure that Ashley Barnes had, and that was such a beautiful thing to see when it was crossed in. He made a poor touch, but he got it from under his feet, took his time, and just slotted it in. I think Vidra, Rodriguez, and perhaps Wood. We didn't see too much of Wood to get the idea, but Vidra and Rodriguez there would have mistouched the ball and just swiped it in. The second our strikers get their mojo back, I'm confident we'll score more goals. It's just, for some reason, all of our strikers at the same time have come up with injury problems and confidence problems in front of goal. And I'm not sure there's anything, I would know anyway, I'm not sure there's anything that you can do other than just hope and wait for your strikers to get it back. And Damage has spoken about it a lot. He just says he knows the goals will come, and they will come. Like, don't get me wrong, the goals will definitely come eventually. It's just about in with a team in Burnley's case, how long is that going to take? How long is it going to take until we have 4 strikers who are on their game all the time and want to score goals and will score goals when given the chance? Because we don't have long left in the Premier League. If we aren't putting goals away, it is quite as simple as that. This season, I think we've been lucky because the teams around us have been, like, most teams this season have been underperforming massively, and it's a bit baffling. This season has been incredible, really. And who would have thought money would be the thing that wins the league? I don't want to sound salty, but we did just spend 900k in 1 year, so I think I have the right to be slightly salty. In terms of substitutions, let me think about who actually came on. Chris Wood, when he came on. From what I did see, he looked sharp. He looked like he wanted to do something. And I think that's a positive thing. It's nice to see him wanting to push and get his way back into the squad. My only worry with that is that we've seen him do it before, and when he's got into the squad regularly and doesn't look like being dropped, he just takes it for granted and is like, listen, mate, I'm in the squad, and I don't need to score goals to stay in. And I'm worried that's the situation we're going to get in again. Wood needs to get back into that habit of working his way into the team that he did when we first started, and earning his place as the main man. Otherwise, we're not going to get the best of Wood. The best of Wood is the most competitive Wood. He's the Wood that scores goals, the Wood that, given any chance, before his injury, will score goals. And that's exactly the Wood we had. And I'm just hoping he can come back and do that and take the chances he needs to take. Dale, oh, you know what? I don't even want to talk about Dale Stephens. I'm sorry. I'm not. It is such a kick in the balls. I don't mean to be sort of gender specific there. It's such a kick in the general genital area. To see Dale Stephens coming on for Jack Cork so late on in the game, that's what we're reduced to right now. That's the level that we're at. No, I'm not talking about it because I will actually cry. I'm not even joking. I will cry. And Lewis Richardson, when he came on, I'm a big advocate for bringing on youth players. I'm not an advocate for playing youth players for full matches in the Premier League. I think that's dangerous more than it helps the youth players. But I think he should have come on a little bit earlier. But bring on a youth player, give him his Premier League debut. Excellent. I'm very, very happy with that. The same thing happened with Dwight McNeil. He came on, played 3 or 4 minutes against Bournemouth, and the season after he was on fire. And it is actually quite as simple as that. Obviously, he didn't do much, but he didn't really have the time to do it. And looking from what I saw, if he were to have stayed on a bit longer, he could potentially have caused a little bit more problem. And that's just what you get with youth players. The same happened with Dwight. And I think the problem with football is motivation. Currently at Burnley, motivation seems to be our biggest problem. Because of the lack of depth, this is a 26-minute video. I'm going to wrap it up soon because I don't want to ramble on for too long. But because of the lack of depth we have in this team, our players have no reason to be motivated. They have no reason to really push themselves because they're not battling anyone to get back in the squad. The only real place we have competition is our strike force, because all of them have underperformed and performed at certain points in the season. Dwight McNeil, I'm definite, unless he is injured, Dwight McNeil cannot be taken from that space, and that is a big problem. Same goes for Ashley Westwood. I don't think he suffers too much from motivation, which is why I think he's performed so well. He for such a prolonged amount of time, because he just doesn't seem to have that. I'm in this squad because I'm in this squad, not because I'm earning my place in the squad. And the reason that he's earning his place in the squad, is because he is earning his place in the squad. As silly as that sounds, but that is the general idea. That's the general case of it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe motivation isn't the problem. You tell me what you think. I do want to get in more discussions with Burnley fans because I want to see how other people see things, so that I feel more informed to do videos like this. I want, like, it's the same with like someone like a Roberto Firmino from Liverpool. People never really understand what he gives to the team, but once people open their eyes to what Roberto Firmino actually does, there's that level of understanding. There's that, okay, I've got it wrong, and if I've got it wrong, I want to know I've got it wrong so I can change up my ways and decide what to go by. Anyway, all in all, I think Tottenham earned the win. I think we earned the loss, and hopefully we can come out on Wednesday against Leicester, who have just lost 3-1 to Arsenal. That could be a good thing for us. That could be a bad thing for us. I hope that's a very, very good thing for us, and that Leicester are just terrified and they just forfeit. Ideally, they forfeit and we win 3-0. I'm going off now. So yeah, on to the next one. Up the Clarets. Thank you for watching. Make sure to enlighten me with anything that you want to say. And yeah, UTC, come on you Clarets, on to the next one.